we go, guys. One we've been waiting for a while. The Seaside, test ridden by your very own No Pro Bro, complete with middle age and overweight, just to make sure the reviews are relative to you. Okay, right, Seaside. Okay, I'm pretty excited. I'll stop trying to be funny now. Seaside, it's here. It's here. It's wet. It's been waxed. It's been out. Pretty stoked. Right, where to start? So, shape as always. So we'll start with the shape. So it's a pretty big outline. It's nice and wide. The dims are 5'11", 22 3/4, and 2 3/4 coming in at 41.1 litres. So it's very wide up in the nose. The very first thing I noticed about it was one, how thin this tail is, which I'll show you in more detail in a minute. And the other thing I noticed about it, which I've not seen very often, is how rounded this curve is. Like, to see with the boards I ride, as you know, they're usually a lot bigger than most of the normal sizes. So it was kind of funny to see a board that looks very similar in a 5'2", 5'4", 5'6" to how it does in the 5'11", which is probably about right, because it's not as far away from the normal sizes as they usually are. Otherwise mine would be a 6'4", and guys are riding like 5'10s and stuff. So yeah, that was quite interesting. It's still very, you know, it's like really stands out as being like very wide up here and very fishy. So yeah, the outline wide up in the nose, pulls in nicely in the tail. As you can see from this grip, you actually don't need to go for a super wide grip, because this tail's pulling into, you know, it's pulling into the width, a sensible width, and it's also very thin. So you're actually, you're not really dealing with a huge fishy tail, which is obviously going to give us plenty of grip. So the rocker, pretty flat. It's fairly flat in the nose, which is quite nice. There's not a whole lot of tail rocker kicking up either, but as you can see, I think one of the biggest things is how much this board thins out in the tail and how much it narrows down into the tail. But one thing I noticed straight away when I got it on it to surf it is it still balances really well. I've ridden boards where they've got a big nose and a small tail, and you just feel like you're dragging tail all the time, or they don't feel in balance, but this feels like it's lifting your back end equally to the front end, and it's a cracking paddler. So one of my first comments is I wouldn't order this too high into your gravel volume, because I really don't think you need to. It's a good paddler for its volume. So I would say this board could be a gravel board, and you'd probably be able to ride it at your gravel volume, but don't go too far. And it could also be a real performer as well if you ride it at your, probably at your like, maybe at your hybrid kind of volume, at your hybrid board volume. So that's the outline shape. As you can see, purely set up as a quad fin. I went for FCS 2. You can get futures as well. They both do the Machado fins, the Machado quads, which I'll show you in a minute. You can get those in futures or FCS, so up to you what you order the board in. Currently there's probably a slightly better selection of 20s in futures. I really like the modern keel in the FCS 2 though, and I've got a lot of other fins, so I just grabbed mine in FCS 2, and I've got the Machado fins in FCS 2, and I'm a real big fan of the controllers in FCS 2 as well. Sorry, they're called the split keels in FCS 2. So yeah, I'll talk about fins in a wee minute. So on the concave side, it's just basically, there might be a very slight bit of single in the early part, but it's basically a very deep double all the way through with a tiny bit of V off the tail. So as we were discussing in our board chats, the double in this, the stringer never sticks into the water further than the rail. So if I put a flat edge on this, there's not going to be that rock that we talk about when we've got V. So yeah, there's just a little bit of V off the tail, so you just get a little bit of rock with that straight edge when you go onto the tail, but through the rest of the board, it's very aggressive double concaves. The concaves remind me somewhat of a baked potato. So I guess if there was a sweet potato and a baked potato, this would be the fishy version, and they'd probably call it the psycho fish potato or something, because it's pretty nuts. So yeah, that's shape. You can see the shape, you can see the rocker. Like I say, one of the big things is how much it fins down in the tail and how much it pulls in at the tail. It's just a nice tight little swallow. And as I was saying, you know, look at that dead grip. That's not a big fish dead grip. That's a standard Julian Wilson FCS. So that's outline shape, rocker. let's go construction. So Firewire, I don't know what other Firewire boards people have ridden, but Firewire used to have what they call FST, and you'll notice those because they've got the rail's balsa rail, and it goes all the way around. That's what they call a parabolic stringer. So the rail behaves as a stringer, and it goes all the way around the outside. So you actually got a really nice flex in them because it was the rail that was giving you that flex in return, not the stringer through the middle. They had like an aerospace deck skin as well, so they were very durable. So they were one of the better technologies that were around. People who like the FST still really like the FST. Probably didn't ride quite as close to poly as some of the other constructions that they did. So you had the rapid fire. I always quite liked the rapid fires. The rapid fires were basically they were pretty much a stringless EPS epoxy, and they had some carbon rods in the early ones, but I think the carbon rods sort of slid around eventually and got a bit more floppy, which I actually liked on my my sweet potato, sorry, funnily enough. So yeah, first was FST, which was the parabolic wood stringer, and it was quite durable. And then they brought out LFT, which was not quite so durable, but it rode really nicely, and the flex was really nice, and it was getting closer towards a PU. And then you also have your TimberTechs, which are a Paulownia wood rail, parabolic rail again, but they've got a Paulownia wood deck skin and a Paulownia wood base. Now they are also known for being very durable. They're a little bit heavier. The flex, I feel myself, is nice in a long board, and it can get a bit stiffer in a short board. So if you don't like a really stiff short board, you may or may not like it. But saying that, with it being wood and wood being a natural product, there's a definite different feeling to it. It's not even if it's stiff, it's never going to feel like a super stiff, horrible board. So some people really like them. Some people have the Evos and TimberTech, and you've got the durability, and they also smash through chop and stuff because they're that bit heavier. So okay, so then basically Helium is basically Firewire's take on getting the best of all worlds. So what we've got is all you see in here is white deck, but what you have actually got, if you go on the internet, you can Google it and you can see a cross section through here. So you've actually got a parabolic rail still, so it's wood all the way around. This outside is actually a wooden parabolic rail again, like it used to be, and it's a mixture of Paulownia and balsa, which is exactly what's in the TimberTechs, I believe. So you've got a little sliver, probably maybe like a quarter to half an inch of balsa and a quarter to half an inch of Paulownia, and I believe they just find that to work really well for flex, and it certainly does in this. And these are insanely light. It feels like almost a blank. So I'm not this isn't my first time having a Helium. I had the Chumley and Helium that year. Just I was blown away by how light it was. But one thing I'll say about the Helium is it's light, and you worry about how light it is, but they've done something with it that it dampens chop really well. So I've talked about this before. I think a lot of the characteristics of epoxies that are negative is actually return of flex. So they've really controlled that. So I've just taken this out in textured bumpy chop, and it's it deals with the chop fine, it deals with the white water, and it's still different to a poly, but with this design, it's sort of, I wasn't really thinking about the fact that I was on an epoxy, which is pretty good, to be honest. So yeah, that's the Helium. It's still got quite a tough deck skin. You might get some impression dents if you're pushing hard on your heel, but it's not going to cave in, and it's a super durable board. Yeah, and the flex is good, and it gives you all that pop and spring and liveliness that you get out of like the carbon wraps and the JS Hi-Fi. This is possibly even just a little bit of a step better than that maybe. So yeah, that's the construction. I've actually been talking about, I've actually liked Rob shapes for quite a long time. When they were first making the creepers and the almond butter and stuff like that, I actually was always saying to people, like, Rob's so underrated. Like his shapes are absolutely magic, and you see some features in his designs and in his concaves that other people don't do. So yeah, I think Rob's a really, really smart guy behind that cruisy exterior. I think he's a very, very, very clever, talented guy, and you got to remember that he was shaping with he had Almeric making boards for him when he was a pro, and he's a really seriously good rider himself, and he was also shaping and helping and collaborating with Al Merrick. So he was making, like, you know, the biscuit was Rob Machado, the motorboat Rob Machado. So, you know, he's collabed with Al Merrick for a long time, and now he's obviously got into his own experimentation, and he doesn't mind putting like slightly wacky concaves and stuff. And you know, you as you started to see the Midases and the Go Fish and everything else coming along, I think he's really started to get some of the accolades he's quite frankly deserves as far as I'm concerned. So, alright, that's bumbling on a bit probably, but yeah, the board. So we've just been for a surf. It was kind of junky and sectiony, but like pretty punchy takeoffs. Waves from probably maybe like chest high to probably a couple were like head high. Yeah, a couple of head highs I reckon I pulled into. And because it was onshore, it was quite a sort of, some of them were like kind of slabby takeoffs and then a bit of a peter out of the wave, and a couple of them kept rolling on, so I actually got a couple of really good rides. And I took it out with the Machado quads, which I'll show you in a minute, and I like those, and I've been putting them in other boards, but I still find them a little bit slippery. I was actually really looking forward to getting them in this board because the way the design, which I'll show you in a minute, is they're basically like a stretched 20 on the front, and then they've got a smaller, not so deep trailer, and obviously that's not going to give you loads of grip at the back end of the board, but with this tail finning out and pulling in, it makes perfect sense with this design. So I might give them a try in a slightly smaller way, but what I was finding was I actually found I was sort of sliding out and I didn't have the control that I like. But I'm a bigger, heavier rider, and I'm used to the split keels, and I like the split keels. So I just wanted to try the Machados. I possibly should have gone with the split keels first because they're kind of my control, like my split keels for grovelly boards, and Al Merrick's large for like a hybrid or a performance board or whatever. Performance for me, it's hybrid for everyone else. But yeah, so and then I chucked the controllers in. It was like, yep, that's the one. And you could really put some weight on it. I'm super impressed. It paddles really well. It gets into waves really well. You feel confident on it. It handles drops really well. It's kind of like a fishy 511 that feels almost as grippy as most of my hybrids, to be honest. Like, yeah, I reckon, yeah, unless you're riding like really hollow waves like this, it's seriously good. Hey, I'm very impressed, and it's got speed, and it feels like it carries speed for a turn really nicely. The other thing is I'm very surprised that I stood up, and the 2 or 3 times I stood up I was like, what's that lump under my back, under my foot? And I was like, oh, I'm actually stood on the part where I'm supposed to be, which doesn't always happen on many boards. Usually I'm like kind of standing there and trying to wriggle my foot back, but we were being a 511, I was like, oh, I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and my foot's over the fins, and it feels good. So yeah, it takes off fast, paddles great, you can get down a fairly steep wall quite well, and I think it's still going to ride pretty decent down to the smaller stuff. I mean, realistically, I've got my beanbag, so I'm probably going to that'll still be my gravel board. Like this isn't, to me, this won't be a gravel board. I doubt I'll ride this until, I mean, for a lot of people in decent waves, it's going to go in next to nothing, but I ain't going to ride this until it's 2-4. Until I know it's like probably at least chest high, I'm not really going to ride this, I don't think, although I'll give it a go and see how it goes. But you know, I've got it's a pretty slow wave here, and when it's slow, so yeah, really good first session. I need to still get some clean waves and get some turns, but very impressed with the way this handles. And I don't know, you know, you'll get honesty from me. It's been a lot of hype about it, and you know, people get wrapped up in boards. But I'm a real big fan of Rob, and I think it's worthy of the hype. It's one of the, even just tonight, it's one of the most exciting boards for all those little differences and the things it does and what it feels like. It's a really good all-round board that you could use for a lot of stuff, and it feels really exciting to ride. It feels really different. It feels like you're on this. You know, it feels like you're on this bladey high-performance fish that's still paddling great and easy to ride and stable, and yeah, I like it. Hey, it suits me well. I'm not a super snappy turner. I like to be able to get down the line fairly quick. I'm not super responsive with my pumps or anything, so I like to be able to just stand on the board and it goes, and maybe you put a couple of pumps that are slow pumps and then do a nice round, you know, do a nice flowing cutback. I'm not like snapping it off the lip or anything, I'm just too old for that. So yeah, let's show you guys through the concaves, and then I'll show you through fins, and we'll we'll wrap it up. Here we go. So, as you will see, this instantly you can see how much this tail blades out through there. It's like super blady in the tail, which I think is awesome. But it carries enough further up here in front of the fins that you're still getting the drive. So it's not like an out of balance board where you got a huge nose and a tiny tiny tail. Excuse me. So here we go through here. You can see this double. You can see this double starting to form here, and it starts to get quite aggressive quite quickly, and it starts to get extremely aggressive as it goes through the fin. So you can imagine how much. You look at how thin the tail is, and then you look at this concave and how much is coming back out of it, and that is a lot of meat coming back out of an already thin tail. So the tail's going to be pretty fine back there. And as I say, this is, the interesting thing as well is I've actually found, like, out near the tail and probably further down, there's kind of a little bit of a flat panel here. So most shapers would generally take the double concave quite far out, but you can feel a pretty definite ridge in a flat, which I think is quite good. I think it's a bit of a design take from the Go Fish and stuff, where they've got those, that step channel, or that, I don't know, tourist channel, whatever they want to call it these days. So that's all the double, and then we're still not into any V yet. We just got double there. And then just at the very exit of the tail, we're just starting to rock a little tiny bit of, just a tiny bit of V through there as we go out. So I'll just go back through and just going to move it around a little bit slowly, so you're definitely going to catch some of the, you can see how aggressive that is. And you can see how thin the tail is. We're super refined through there. So yeah, this is it is pretty much a do-it-all board really, which is pretty interesting. Within reason. We've got a pretty slow break here, so I could ride it in anything. So as we were saying, fins, you got this and this. So basically this is pretty close to the size of a 20. It's got a bit more, it's quite a long base and it's quite far back. The difference I notice is it doesn't have, I'm used to 20s and the controls with a bit more depth, and the same with the back one. I'm kind of used to a bit more depth, so I find this probably just lacking a little bit of grip in the back for me, but I could try it in a smaller wave and really like it, because it's definitely a perfect complement to the board. So if you're, I'd say if you're under 80 kgs, it's probably going to suit you really well. And if you're heavier, or you just really like the split keels, you can just stick with the split keels. These feel great. Like I know these fins, and I like the feel of them in a lot of boards, and you've got that depth and security in the back. So give you a bit of an idea, together it's very upright versus very swept back, so they're kind of a different, they are quite a different take and a different split on it. This is like a twin with a stabilizer, whereas these are like a keel fin split in two, so they're kind of a bit different, and they're doing a bit of a different job. And then obviously for the back one, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to guess which one of those is going to provide the most hold. So yeah, if you're in New Zealand, you might see a set of Rob Machado fins going on Trade Me that you can't get anywhere else, maybe. I'm quite keen to try these with it sounds crazy, but I'm quite keen to chuck these in my bean bag with a modern keel on the front, like double keel it, and just see how much of a race car it is, just for fun. Anyway, that's about that. So yeah, that is the Seaside. Very happy, very exciting board. Yeah, definitely one to be excited about. One that you can ride in a lot of waves. If you weren't riding death-defying waves, you could take it as especially in New Zealand. if you weren't going anywhere too heavy and you're not riding anything much over four, maybe head and a half at the most, all the way down to, like waist high, if you're in the right board at the right volume. So it's like, could be a one board quiver, or you could have it as like your grovel to half decent, and then just take maybe you'd take like a Lost Quiver Killer or Psycho Killer or whatever you've got, or your DHD or your JS, or something like that to complement it. But yeah, cracking board. Really works well with those double concaves. Everything he's done on it, it's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to getting some more rides in, and I'll probably come back again with an update once I get further down the line of how much I like it, how long I've been riding it, and different kinds of waves. But yeah, my advice is don't go too crazy with the volume. Your grovel volume is probably going to grovel well because it's a good paddler. If you've got a puddle jumper or a puddle fish, it's definitely it's probably it's a better paddler than the puddle fish actually. So yeah, keep that in mind. And when you go for your tail pad, you don't need to get a super. You do need a decent pad that you can split into 3 pieces, but you don't need a mega wide pad. So don't go looking for the. They fit, but you don't need to go. You don't need to go crazy looking for a full on. You don't need to go to the stage of getting a full on like fish pad that you can really widen out. It just doesn't need it. And yeah, that's about it, I think. And the technology is quite impressive as well. So yeah, if you can find them, don't be scared to grab one, and you'll definitely enjoy it. If you're in New Zealand, Andrew and the team at Ultimate Surf they bought a big stock of them, so they've actually got most of them went out in first orders as already pre-bought and pre-signed, but they have actually got some in stock. So if you're trying to get hold of one, ring Andre or the boys at Ultimate Surf and give them a shout, because they managed to get mine through on the first couple of orders. So yeah, all right, cool guys, awesome.